So I've been catching up on old movies recently with my partner. And by recently, I mean last year because I have a problem with procrastinating. But that's nothing new because just look at the last time I uploaded a video on this channel. But yeah, we were watching The Truman Show, and as I was watching it, I was like, wow, this is a really interesting critique on modern media and reality shows, and can probably apply to content creation in the space as it is right now. But when it ended, it made me think, there's no way a corporation let a show that was this successful ever end. They would have pushed it until it couldn't continue anymore or lost the attention of its fans. I mean, look at Supernatural or Dexter or any other show that has a sequel. Letting something that is super successful like that just die is like throwing away free money for a media company. It just doesn't make sense. Get it? Sense? I'll leave now. Anyways, the thing about content is it is always iterative. There's always something needed to be changed or modified in the content to keep drawing people in. Because despite a crowd of people who always claim to want a creator to keep doing the same thing that made them famous, even they get tired of the same repetitive cycle over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and look, now you're bored too. Thinking about this, it got me wondering, how would corporations change/modify the Truman Show formula in our current mid to late stage capitalistic economy? Would it even be viable for someone to escape this modern Truman Show? And would the corporations, like Christoph, even think to allow it? Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy John, aka Stealth here, and follow me on a quick journey down this random hole I went through in my brain, and then finding out that I have no original thoughts because there is a game that has already done everything I'm about to discuss today. But I'll talk about that at the end because I had all these thoughts before I played the game, but then I found the game and I was like, wow. And while the full playthrough for that game does exist on my channel from when I initially thought of this video, please don't go. Please don't watch them. But that's for the end. Let's just hop in. If you don't know what the Truman Show is, I actually don't blame you. As someone who was not born in the US and not raised on pop media, I am sorely out of the loop when people talk about movies and shows that are seemingly common knowledge. Hell, that's why I was watching the movie with my partner last year, because we were going through older movies that they or I may not have seen. But anyways, for a short recap, if you haven't seen it, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend pausing this video, opening a new tab, a new app, whatever, watching The Truman Show, and then coming back here, because spoilers are ahead. Be warned. But if you're proceeding, I'm assuming you've already seen the movie or do not care about spoilers for a nearly 30-year-old movie, in which case, let's move. The Truman Show is a movie following our protagonist, Truman. Now, Truman is just a chill guy with a normal life and normal friends in a normal town. At least that's what he believes to be the case initially. In reality, every single aspect of his life, from when he was a wee baby, adopted by a corporation, to full adulthood and marriage, has been filmed and broadcasted to the entire populace without his conscious consent. Which is insane to think about, like, if you really, pause to think about it. Imagine every embarrassing moment in your life, every time you tripped, every time a crush rejected you, every lie you told, viewed by an audience you weren't aware of. Now imagine that those moments weren't even natural moments. Imagine your crush actually does like you, but had to reject you because the show never intended for you to fall for her in the first place. That your furniture was moved ever so slightly so your muscle memory would force you to trip on the misplaced stool, or that objects were perfectly placed around you throughout the day that would help you come up with a convincing lie. This wasn't imaginary for Truman. This was actually the case. And this is what Truman found out throughout this movie. His home, his job, his wife, his best friend, every single person and thing in his life was methodically placed there for the sake of keeping him on the island and keeping the show going. Heck, they even wrote a storyline where his dad disappeared at sea to traumatize him as a child and ingrain a fear of water into him, forcing him to not travel and want to stay on his island. I don't know about you, but that's some Chris McClane level show writing right there. Welcome to Total Drama. But why wouldn't a corporation want to do this? I mean, in the universe of the show, The Truman Show was the most popular thing on TV, bar none. It had people glued to their screens in a way nothing else did. The ratings the show had from the corporation's point of view were an infinite goldmine of possibilities, not to mention the ad revenue, which was not so subtly slipped in the form of people recommending products to Truman. So obviously, Christoph did his best to keep the illusion alive for Truman and tried his damned hardest to stop him from escaping into reality, to the point where he almost drowns Truman, rationalizing that he was born on camera, so he might as well die on it as well. Truman overcomes all of this and eventually escapes his encampment. What occurs after this is completely left up to the viewer, as this is where the movie ends, with the in-universe watchers immediately switching the channel to find something new to consume their ever so meaningless attention spans. Now, from Truman's point of view, and the point of view of the audience, the ending of this movie is a win. Truman escapes, he gets to live his life how he sees fit, gets to make his own decision, decide his own path, without worry of being subtly influenced without his knowing. But to the corporations, this is a all hands on deck, nuclear level situation. Their veritable gold mine has all of a sudden disappeared, and they would need to replace it quick before they lost all interest that they had garnered for the Truman Show. But how would they do that? They couldn't necessarily just adopt another baby and stage the entire thing again. People would have already seen that with the Truman Show, and while some may tune in to see it again, they would lose a large portion of people who simply didn't want to see the same thing over and over and over again. So what would they change, and how would they change it? I believe that someone in the boardroom would get an idea. Instead of just adopting one baby, how about 2 babies or 3 and raise them as siblings? It's one thing to get someone to believe that what they're seeing is reality, but what if multiple people around them believed it was reality as well? After all, part of the reason the illusion fell apart for Truman is that the actors were people from the outside, who had outside knowledge and carried outside materials.
Everything I've told you is the truth.
Please.
It's fake. It's all for you.
I don't understand.
And the sky and the sea, everything. It's a set. It's a
please.
show. Everybody's
You'll be
watching
all right.
you. Please don't
Please,
listen to him.
Lauren.
He's gonna lie to you.
The story needs to be carefully crafted to be believable, and part of what makes something believable is having others around you wholeheartedly believe that what they are seeing is reality. This would likely get the gears spinning in the heads of the producers and board members. Ideas would start spewing out, building on this. Questions would be asked. How many siblings? 1, 2? Should the parents be present? It could just be siblings at an orphanage tugging at the heartstrings of the viewers. Should they be blood related or not? Why should they be siblings at all? This is the question that quiets the room, with the person who asks taking center stage. Why would they have to be siblings? I get that we're trying to build a strong bond, but that bond can also be had with people who you just grew up with from childhood. Heck, if the relationship is strong enough and perceivably natural enough, it can be had with just about anyone. So why force the sibling thing? Why not have a neighborhood of people who all have no clue that their lives are being watched? People's brains light up. This is it. After all, Truman was one white male. While the dominant demographic in America at the time, this was not the only demographic. People liked relating to Truman or projecting onto Truman, but there was a level of suspension that had to be there if you didn't necessarily look like Truman. Having an entire neighborhood, no, town of people allows you to target everyone. If you don't relate to the white average man worker, boom, his coworker who is African also has his whole life being documented. You can follow him. Don't want to follow someone who works in insurance? Boom, follow his friend who works in robotics, or their friend who works as a bodybuilder. With all this diversity, they could fine-tune their marketing as well. Subcategorize each individual into a bucket of traits and then use those traits to market to advertisers. If you were watching The Bodybuilder, for example, you would either be a bodybuilder yourself or someone who is not comfortable with the way your body looks and wants to achieve that physique. Perfect marketing target for fitness brands. Their goldmine with Truman would evolve into a money printing machine. At the mention of this, all the board members would perk up. After all, their language has been evoked, money. They can see the profit. After a bit of discussion, the concept gets greenlit. Now, I cannot necessarily go into detail on how the production would work here because I am not a producer. But I do feel like they would struggle initially with how they would package this show. They would realize the scale of the entire town with individualized shows is too large for TV. The town idea, though attractive, would have to be shelved to make it manageable. Shrinking the scale back down, you could have a Friends or Office style show that runs 24/7 following the lives of these people. In the background, the corporation hires psychologists, neurologists, and many other medical specialists to begin researching what makes humans tick. How do their brains work and how do you better condition them to get the reactions you want? Can the human personality be effectively built from the ground up to create the type of person you want? As with the Truman Show, a group of people would question the ethics and morals of keeping a bunch of people trapped without knowing there is more to the world, or being given the chance to choose whether they want to be there or not. But these people would be quickly overlooked. Obviously, who cares about ethics in the face of a buttload of cash? Then all of a sudden, as the internet infrastructure expands, the corporation notices that some of their show is being uploaded to some sailor-aligned sites for people to download and watch. Now, the corporation initially does not like this, as they know there are a lot more people downloading the episodes than they expected. Some of the sites were even allowing you to watch the video directly without download. This, though, leads them to realize that the infrastructure for the internet is actually quite robust, and if they simply streamed the camera feeds online, they could have multiple channels dedicated to individuals, greatly undercutting editing costs and allowing for people to more directly follow those who they relate to, cutting out loss of interest when the show focuses on people they do not care about. Boom, Truman Town is back on the map. The corporation invests heavily into online infrastructure, taking all the money they have been making and pouring it directly into the development of a dedicated streaming site. While doing this, some of their show members inevitably fall in love, forced proximity and all that, and have a baby. This all obviously being captured on the show. The corporation also starts ramping up its adoption of children across the world to have brought into their show to increase the population of the town. This causes the ethics people to flare, growing in noise until they can no longer be ignored by the politicians. The ethics of this is set to be discussed in the Senate, but being a rich, multi-billion-dollar corporation at this point, they simply make some donations to a couple of political campaigns, and all of a sudden, the discussions go in the favor of the corp. No foul play here. Absolutely none at all, obviously. With the blessings of the government, the corporation notices that the island may be too small for their ambitions. They purchase a large amount of land and start building out infrastructure for the new town city thing. This allows for the cameras to be wired directly into every building in areas you wouldn't even expect. During this time, security becomes lax at the original Truman location, allowing one of the ethical zealots to sneak onto the island and contact one of the group members who are being streamed. They bring with them a folder of information and pictures, which exposes the dome in which they are trapped under. The intruder gets caught by security, but it's too late. The information has been passed to the inside, and our insider is determined to let their other friends know about this. They break the news to the others after breaking the legs of the camera. After breaking the legs of the cameras in the same way that Truman did in his original series. Shocked by this information, most of the people agreed to attempt to break out, with the only holdout seeming to be the couple, who are concerned about their newborn child and choose to stay behind. After a bit of corporate planning, cautiously avoiding the eyes of their corporate captors, the insiders make a break for it under the cover of night. Carefully avoiding the eyes of the security, they make it out, much to the dismay of the corporation, who were on cloud 9 with their plans for building the new corporation city. They had already planned a natural disaster transition in order to relocate the captees, and were now in another rut. With only the couple and their child, the show can no longer continue as is. The company switches the focus of the show on the family and their move to the new town, making a much more stable but less emotionally impactful transition to the new era. They also actually negotiate contract terms with the family, as they're now aware of the experiment that they're a part of, essentially allowing them the quote-unquote choice to sign their lives away to the corporation. They still have a problem, however, and that is, as soon as people hear about the outside world, they want to leave. They want to quote-unquote exercise free will, which they only want to give their viewers the illusion of. They do not want the constituents of their city to actually have that free will. They also realize that their lack of persistent security and their oversight of locations within their purview was not acceptable. Since they were still currently constructing the town, they could go for a panopticon-esque design, implementing one of their own people, someone who had been raised in the system and was well aware of the corporation's interest at the center. The family who stayed now became the first family of the corporation, responsible for maintaining the illusion and ensuring people do not escape nor want to escape. As they were friends with the last escapees, they have special insight into how the information was presented, how the escape was planned, and why different users wanted to escape. So in the background of the show occurring, this information was fed to the corporation scientists. The scientists used this information, along with their research which has been occurring since the time that the Truman Show ended, to begin brainwashing the babies. There would be a recurring and ever-present stimulation for the children, which, if viewed by a normal person, meant nothing. But for the babies who had received conditioning since birth, subtly nudged them to not notice cameras or not have any interest in leaving their small town, or to have them be hostile towards people they viewed as outsiders. This brainwashing could be images, or a catchy tune, a melody layered into popular music within the town, each song having an underlayer of the message, serve the corporation, stay in the walls. But that is only the beginning. Advents in psychological and neurological research mean that the corporations can, at will, carve out the memories of those raised within their walls, giving them no memories of the outside world if they ever get exposed to it. This means that even if another person with quote-unquote morals or whatever snuck in and attempted to quote-unquote rescue their golden geese, they could easily capture and quarantine the person and then remove the information through mental coercion. I repeat, this means that if another person with quote-unquote morals or whatever snuck in and attempted to quote-unquote rescue their golden geese, they could easily capture and quarantine the person and then remove the information through mental coercion. If this doesn't work, then the person would take a trip, i.e. get taken to the back of the shed. But why such an extreme reaction? Well, you remember the people who had escaped earlier? Well, they had gotten integrated into the world and realized that living in the real world was a lot different to living in the idyllic dome that the corporation had crafted. It was a lot grittier and meaner. But luckily, they were celebrities who had the hottest life stories at the very moment. So why not sell it? They wrote books on their experiences, went on talk shows, and had interviews, all the while bashing the corporation for their practices. Again, this shook the corporation a little bit, but in the face of money, it inevitably meant nothing. Puff pieces on the corporation were printed to mask the bad information. They made massive donations to nature and medical research. They even outright paid some of the escapees to have them shot up, threatening legal action if they proceeded. After all, these were a couple of newly introduced to the real world adults versus a corporation that had made the real world their playground. This stemmed the wave of anti-corp sentiment, but they would not risk this occurring again, at least not until they could control it in their favor. Stricter security would also be implemented in the town itself, which has now fully taken shape. A sort of idyllic trapped in time utopia where everyone knows each other and there is no financial struggle. Those who cannot earn are obviously taken to the back of the shed, so technically there is no homelessness. A paramilitary force under the directive of the corporation would exist to make sure no one gets in, or more importantly, no one gets out of the town without the permission of the corps. They would obviously not perform manhunts in the public eye, instead making it seem like the person they were hunting had won a sweepstakes or a lottery or gotten a promotion, asking them to meet with designated personnel to accept their rewards. All to not disillusion the precious viewer. Military drone technology would be implemented to cover the skies 24/7, allowing for constant surveillance of the town. This, along with all the cameras, makes it borderline impossible to escape the eye of the people. As the show prints more money, the corporation lobbies more and more of the government, granting them more and more rights until they are nearly an independent entity in their own right. Now, all of this is where my thought spiral had led me, until I was browsing Steam and came across a demo for a game. The game title? American Arcadia. Not sponsored. Actually not sponsored. And guess what? Everything that I had discussed in this video, every thought I had for how the corporation may proceed, they had already implemented into the world. It's almost as if they could see or control what I was thinking. American Arcadia is an artificial city built under a huge dome in a 1970s retro-futuristic style, originally conceived as a utopian planned city showcasing future technologies. It was sort of similar to Walt Disney's original vision for Epcot, mixed with a bit of retro-futurism. The city houses a ton of people whose lives are broadcasted 24/7 through hidden cameras and CCTVs. And the twist, just like the Truman Show, the residents have no idea that they are the stars of the most popular reality show in the world. American Arcadia presents corporate control at its most chillingly efficient. A ton of people living their lives under a dome completely unaware that they are being viewed by hella people. And Walton Media, the stand-in for our corporation in this case, they had essentially built a human cost-benefit calculator. So their profit model essentially was that every resident had a popularity rating, which was tracked in real time based on your views, your likes, viewer interaction. If you had high ratings, you're an asset. your mundane trips to the grocery store, your failed dates, your morning coffee, all profitable content keeping the shareholders happy. If you had low ratings, however, you weren't getting any viewers. You were basically fresh on Twitch. No viewers, no motion, no subs, no nothing. Low ratings, eliminated permanently. You don't even get a choice in it. The corporation has decided that boring people aren't worth the investment. If your everyday office job doesn't generate enough viewer engagement, if your life doesn't make compelling television, you receive a travel grant, quote unquote, which is their euphemism for execution. They basically turned human existence into clickbait. And the true horror of it isn't the fact that you have all of this surveillance, or even like the fact that they're killing people. It's the fact that they've built such an efficient machine that allows it all to work. Walton Media has created, through lobbying and giving money and donating, they've created legal frameworks making everything technically voluntary, despite their residents never having had an idea that they had volunteered. They weaponized nostalgia, which is why they had it have that reminiscent 1970s aesthetic to make viewers comfortable with what they were watching. They even have a bit of that psychological conditioning, which I had mentioned earlier in the video as well. But I'm not going to spoil how they do that because that's a plot point in the game and it's pretty cool. So yeah, go. I recommend go play the game. So yeah, Walton Media didn't just trap people in the dome. They trapped them in a business model where the bottom line requires human sacrifice. They dressed it up in bright colors and disco music and convinced the world to tune in every single day. So then what happens when Trevor, your standard white male who kind of acts as an allegory for Truman, has his number called to be taken to the shed out back? You'll have to play the game to find out. Just a note, I do love the inclusion of Trevor in the game, who by all senses of the word is just Truman in different glasses. This really just shows how blown out of control the initial draw to the Truman Show was for people, and as minimalized that draw to the point of irrelevancy. It's kind of, they literally lost the plot because the entire draw of Truman was he was a normal guy, but now the normal people get overlooked for people who have quote unquote more interesting lives. But that's essentially all for now. I don't think there's more reason for me to explore this topic, as I have played American Arcadia and I love their world building. Do not watch the gameplay on my channel again, but definitely go play the game or watch someone else play it. And let me know in the comments what you think corporations would do when the Truman Show ended to kind of keep it rolling and keep their money flowing. But yeah, that's all for now. Go watch the other videos on my channel, except for the American Arcadia one or any video before the American Arcadia one. And I'll see you guys in the next video whenever I upload. But in case I don't, as always, you already know, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Peace.
Like?